Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Dr. John Michael Salvato, your organic living and peak performance coach. And I thought maybe that by starting 15 minutes late, everybody would be here on time, since most folks usually show up about 5 or 10 minutes late. But it looks like when you start 15 minutes late, people still show up 15 minutes late. So we're going to get started with or without folks on board and in the conversation. And the topic today is one of those important topics that you've probably recognized in a lot of my coaching style, and that is that the quickest path forward can be found in being straightforward. We live in a society where this crazy obsession with political correctness has caused us to whitewash everything that we say with vagueness or just to stop sharing our core values without worrying about carefully orchestrating everything that we say and do to make sure that it's accepted by everyone else. And when you do that, this practice of political correctness, which is really at the end of the day is a self-protection mode. It's not something that serves us really well. It's a cover-up. It masks our truths so that we can be more homogenous with the truths of others, and it's really excuse me, it's really packaging our feelings, our expression of ourselves, the vitality and uniqueness of who we are in this intense sanitized version that's ready for primetime TV. And that has a tremendous toll, not just on the effectiveness of your communication, but on your overall effectiveness in life. See, when you start to spend all of that energy, that's energy that's being spent that could be spent otherwise. As a nation, we've become conversationally contrived. And so while you might feel like you need to edit yourself and you need to put all your filters on in order to have a conversation with person A, when person B comes along, it's become such a habit. We talked yesterday about habituation. It's become such a habit that you don't bring your authentic self to the marketplace. I think that in this group, a lot of you have seen that I'm, excuse me, I'm not the kind of person who is conversationally contrived. If there's an issue with something or someone or a circumstance or situation, or with me or with technology, I'm going to tell you exactly what the issue is. And the reason for that is really simple. I don't have the energy to waste on contrived conversations. When you're investing your time and your effort and your resources in bettering yourself every single day, then you can be sure I'm going to bring my A game, because I take that seriously. I take your personal development as seriously as my own, and I value your time as much as my own. So there's no reason for me to sugarcoat things. There's no reason for me to couch what I'm saying in passive aggression. If there's an issue with somebody, I'm going to tell you. If somebody's no longer with our program, I'm going to tell you. Like I said the other day, I won't call people out in front of other people because I think that's unprofessional and tacky and immature. But you can rest assured that if I have an issue with you, you and I will have a conversation. And it doesn't mean that I'm going to be right. It simply means that I'm going to let you know that we have an issue. And it may be that your reasons or excuse me, or rationale for a particular behavior is perfectly legitimate. In which case, I'll simply say that I'm either sorry, or we agree to disagree, or whatever the case might be. But I'm not going to waste your time or mine by dancing around the subject. Last week, somebody came to me and said, and I can't mention the company because a number of you are with this company, but somebody wanted to know, since I own salons and spas, would I consider taking a look at their company because they really need help. They don't believe that they should be doing home parties. They don't believe that that's a 2016 way of doing business, and they happen to like their product, and I really don't see it. The product that they like, some of the other products that their company has, I think would be much smarter focus for them. Although those other products are private labeled products that are extremely overpriced and about 3 to 5 times more than what they're worth in the marketplace. You can buy the exact same greens are the exact same, energy products or fat burning products or whatever at your health food store for at least half price, if not for 25% of what they're charging. So they asked me, well, why wouldn't you just jump in and help us? And they were so kind. They said, we'll pay your way in. Well, it's not about not wanting to invest money in a company or even really about distracting myself from the focus of my primary business. It's about the simple fact that I can't do business with companies that don't meet the criteria that I've set. And so I pointed out to them, you have some products in your product line that have ingredients in it that are toxic. You have other products in your product line that are just poorly formulated. And you have some products in your product line I absolutely love and would buy in a heartbeat, but I won't do business with companies that sell toxic products. So I can't buy the good products and just ignore the bad products. And that person was taken aback. For about 3 days. They wouldn't talk to me, and there was a distinct wedge between us. And then I called them aside and said, can we jump on a video chat? And I said, you asked me for my opinion. You asked me to help you with your business, and that's my objective. I certainly wasn't trying to get you into my business because you're already so far in debt that it doesn't make sense to even be in the direct sales business right now, because you've absolutely destroyed your foundation. You have zero structure. I won't enroll somebody who has no structure in their life. I just don't do it. I want somebody who's going to succeed, and I'm not going to just tell them what they want to hear so that they walk away feeling fluffy and airy fairy, rainbows and unicorns. If you really care about somebody, you need to tell them exactly how you feel. You need to be honest. You need to bring your A game. You need to be ethical. Now, that doesn't mean that you say things in a crass way or a rude way. I mean, I was very gentle with this person, and I'm really happy to say that today we're friends, and she's taking a look at some of the things that I said, because I know she's not even happy with that company. I know that she knows some of those ingredients are toxic, and some of their not their flagship product, but some of the other products. And I know she struggled with that from day one. I know that she knows that the leadership really doesn't cut it, and that her sponsor is as worthless as breasts on a nun. So that I understand those things, and now she understands that I just want her to find her way, find something she could be passionate about, find something where she can bring integrity. Because here's what happens. When you spend all of your time doing this politically correct dance, when you're editing yourself on a daily basis, you're not bringing authenticity to the marketplace. And people do not respond to what you say. That was a big lesson for me to learn. That it's not what you say, but how you feel about what you say that people are going to respond to. So when somebody would get up in front of the room with my first company and talk about how awesome the products are and how they just couldn't be without the products and blah, 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 the owner of the company, Mark Hughes, would say, it's not what you say, but how you feel about what you say. And if you get up there and you're just giving a product pitch, because that would happen, we'd have these big, meetings, events, and there would be, probably 300 or 400 people from our group at the event, and people would be getting up and telling their story, and they lost 30 pounds in their first month, and they lost 150 pounds in their first 6 months, and they'd be telling these stories, and there'd be genuine emotion shared because this was changing people's lives back then. And then somebody would get up because they had, a need, that they were a needy McNugget. They needed that attention. And they'd say, oh, and I really love these products. And I take them, and you could see them putting together pieces of other people's testimonials. And I feel good in the morning, and I have energy, and I've lost weight, and I just can't believe it. And the thing was, these were people who didn't lose a pound because they didn't have a pound to lose. Half of them weren't even taking the products. I mean, there were some times when we would have to pull somebody aside and say, I've been to your home. And this was one of, back in the day when we used to carry inventory for products with companies. And when I was there 2 weeks ago, there were 12 bottles of Formula One on your shelf. And when I came back there today, there were 12 bottles of product on your shelf. So when you get up in front of the room and you're telling people how fantastic you feel, how much you love these products. The products don't work unless you take them. So you're not getting results. You're not being authentic. You're not bringing, who you are to the equation. And over the past week, you've heard several people. Amanda has talked about it. Sandy's talked about it. Jen's talked about it. Mike's talked about it. That the simple fact is that when we when we sorry, I got distracted there for a minute. But the simple fact is that when we don't bring our A game, then there's nothing there for people to want to buy. Now you're competing. When you're just the company's mouthpiece, the company becomes the brand. You stop branding yourself. And very few people join companies. I'm not going to say that nobody joins companies, but very, very few. There are some people out there that join a company. I can tell you that I've done it in the past. There was a particular company that a friend of mine started, and I wanted to join that company to support him. His products were fairly priced. His compensation plan was pretty but I wanted to do what I could to support his business. And I was using products like his, paying almost the same price for them. And so I wanted to join his business, and he said, well, just go pick somebody to sponsor you. So I really wasn't joining a person. I was joining a company. That happens maybe 1% of the time. The other 99% of the time, people don't join companies, people join people. People don't buy products, people buy results. So if you want to see your business grow, then you've got to start getting results, your results and other people's results. And then you've got to bring that authenticity to the marketplace. You can't tell people what you think they want to hear, because that doesn't work. It's not going to ring true for them. And this is an energetic exchange. Every conversation, every connection, every engagement is an exchange of energy. And that's why there's no shortcuts to being effective on social media. Because until that energy level has connected, and until that exchange of energy is flowing freely, then that exchange of ideas has a harder time of getting through. So when you use politically correctness, if you're not straightforward with somebody, when you're passive aggressive, when you're just trying to sugarcoat everything because you're afraid to say what you think or what you feel, then that connection isn't at its highest level. And I will tell you that there are people within this group with whom I've not been able to establish that kind of connection, because as soon as I start to talk about things that make them uncomfortable, they shut down. And that's fine, and I respect if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. But I can tell you that there are other people in this group who've allowed themselves and me to get very uncomfortable, to have conversations that were difficult to have. And then I'll say one more thing before we open up and hear from Sandy and Amanda, and that is that, in life, sometimes doing the right thing makes us very uncomfortable, and that happens because you're in the moment and you're a compassionate person who genuinely cares about other people. So give yourself a moment to just kind of be gentle with yourself when you find yourself at a point where you say, I know it's time to move on, or I know I've got to do something, I've got to make some serious changes. I know I've got to cut the ties with this person. I know I've got to, find a different sponsor. I know, whatever the case might be, allow yourself that space to be gentle with yourself and say, this is uncomfortable for me because I care. This is uncomfortable for me because the connection I have with that person or that company or that business or that group was genuine. And parting ways is the first step in a grieving process that's going to take place. You're going to feel badly when you know that a relationship can't go on any further. But here's what happens when you do that and you send love in the place of out from that grief. Then healing can take place if the other person is open to it. Healing will take place. And many of you know the story of what happened to me, the horrible experience I had a few months ago, about 2 months ago, when I was down in Clearwater on vacation and taking care of Craig's parents, and two people that I love very dearly, due to emotional illness and age, parted ways. And it was a very, very painful parting of ways. And all I could do was to say, you know, it hurts because I love them. It hurts because I really want what's best for them and I'm only trying to help them. But all I can do is let them know that my arms are always open, my door is always open, and that I send out love in place of their hostility, and that when they're ready, I'll be here. And last week, one of those individuals reached back out to me and reconnected. Now, there's that relationship isn't healed, that relationship isn't whole again, but the first step was taken. And yesterday, the second of those two people reached out, asked me to add them on Facebook, and started to engage with me again. Again, the situation's not healed, the situation's not whole, but the situation is healthier than it would have been. And so welcome to all of our Susie Come Latelys. Let's just go down the line, and we'll start with Sandy, since she was here first. And let's hear from you, Sandy, on what your thoughts are about this process and about the whole idea of the surest way to go forward is to be straightforward.
Absolutely. Sometimes we don't know when to move on, but we start to know when it becomes more not right than right. So we need to learn those signals. When something doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right, it's probably not right. So that said, leaving relationships can be painful. They can be very painful. So I like the idea that you just give us of sending love instead of hostility. Because, you know, if we say, darn that, I'm using darn instead of what I normally would say, but, you know, that's okay. You get my message. Instead of doing that, say, you know, I bless that situation, I bless that person. But I think you have to mean it. If you just give idle words, that's not the same for your forgiveness as if you mean it. So if you're ready to part company, with a person, with a situation, with a lifestyle, whatever that may be, then I really like the concept of sending lots of powerful love to that situation. And then maybe it's not quite as painful, because I know we all go through painful situations, regardless if it's losing a loved one or divorce or end a relationship. You know, I've had good friends that I've known for years that I had to part friendship with. And it was painful. It still is kind of painful at times, but it's not more painful than the pain that that person created in my life. So I think knowing when to walk away is important, and knowing that sometimes it takes time to heal, I think that's important. So that's about all I have to really add to this conversation today, but it's a very good topic. And until we learn to walk away, until we learn to give love instead of hostility, because that hostility will eat you up from the inside out. And you'll give anger to people that you don't mean to give anger to.
Right.
You'll give anger to your family members or the people that care about you. And they're the last person that should receive that anger that you're not letting go of.
Right on. Thank you, Sandy. You know, for those who are really astute and watch these videos really carefully, or who are as anal retentive as I am and pick up on things, I'll share with you that sometimes doing that work that Sandy just talked about, is very is work. I mean, it really is hard work, to be able to not say, oh, I bless that bitch, and let them go on their way. Well, that's not really blessing them, is it? You know, that's you just have to reach the point. Now, that might be really who you are and where you are at that moment. You know, all right, I bless that bitch, and I wish God to give them everything they need and 3,000 miles between us. There's an old Yiddish blessing that goes something like that. But what I had to do with this particular situation in my life was, if you look in my video screen here, some of you might notice that there was a change. Well, I had to physically have a reminder on my meditation altar every single day that relationship, from my perspective, was whole and healthy. And so that meant taking for the easiest way to do that for me, so that I would see it all day long, because my meditation altar is just off screen. Um, I needed to move, a photograph, and so I hung this horribly cheesy photograph of me up in its place, and I but that the main photograph of what I was working on had to be on my altar, so that every time I walked by there, because I couldn't walk to the bathroom without passing it, I couldn't go to the kitchen without passing it, I couldn't go to the bedroom without passing it. So every time I went by, I would stop for a minute, put my hand on my heart, and say namaste. And sometimes it's that simple, just to stay rooted in love, and to allow those things to work themselves out in that other person's life. So you're not taking on their drama. You're not going to their circus playing with their monkeys. You're just staying true to who you are, because you're not just being love or sending love. You are love expressing itself. That's your true nature, is love and pure awareness. And so all you're doing is just becoming more authentic. And like we said yesterday, blessing that situation for what it's reflecting back to you. And that's, so we want to stay on topic about what it means, that this is all about being straightforward. Sometimes being straightforward is not about, ending a relationship. It's not about walking away from the wrong situation. Sometimes being straightforward might be staying in that situation, staying with that company, staying with that organization, and confronting the problem, and saying, this isn't how I'm going to do it. This isn't going to work for me. Or it might be confronting your own issues and saying, hey, you know what? I'm sorry that, I've not been bringing my A game, because I refuse to be structured. I refuse to be disciplined. I refuse to be accountable. Let's change that up. Let me start again, beginning today. So Amanda, jump in and first of all, give everybody a report on how Ginny's doing.
Okay, I just dropped her off at home. That's why I'm still in the same clothes from 2 days ago. Um, haven't had a shower. Not a happy person, but I will be shortly. But anyway, the other thing, she's doing much better. They sent her home with protonics, so she knows that she's got to change up the way that she's eating and stuff like that. So she is doing much better. She's happy to be home in her own bed. So that's all great. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, anyone who's using a cell phone to connect to this call, in the group, your cell phone is truncating that link. That's why when I send you the link in a private message, you're able to get in. It's because it's not truncating it in the private message, but something about in the group, the cell phones are truncating it. And the only reason I know that is because I tested it. But that aside, back to the topic. The biggest thing that I've learned about this has been in myself, that very much like what you said, that in the relationship, sometimes I have a hard time being straightforward without sarcasm. And I was always told it's not necessarily the way what you say, it's the way you say it. And so I've had to adjust that. But when it comes to those relationships that are going towards the toxic route for me, I've learned that I've had to come to a point of peace in myself, that it's okay to let go, that I'm not giving up on someone. I'm just trying to keep myself in a better mentally healthy and balanced position. And my experience over the last few years in doing that is that, like, the relationships tend to take a different form when they're being healed than what they were before, because what I'm finding in the relationships that I had to sever, what is that people are starting to look and say, okay, what was my part in it? Not everybody realizes that they have, if there's a relationship's always two or more people. And so everybody is going to have responsibility in that relationship. Nobody is without responsibility. And it takes each of us coming to that point to realize that we do have personal responsibility in it, no matter how much someone might have hurt us. We have some responsibility in it. And that's been the biggest thing for me. That and just trying to temper the sarcasm, because I can be a very sarcastic, sometimes even caustic person when I'm talking, especially if I'm angry. And I try very hard to not have conversations when I'm angry because of that. And it took me really going to a bad place physically and emotionally to start realizing that my responsibility in that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I can't even remotely relate to being sarcastic. um, it's and I think that you brought up such a good point, because when we're being sarcastic, I mean, there's a difference between just being a sarcastic bitch like I am all the time, and the kind of sarcasm that comes from pain. And that sarcasm that comes from pain is an opportunity for us to, it's sometimes maybe you can't stop it, because it's a reaction, it's a knee-jerk reaction. But then it's always really helpful for me when I see that when I'm being sarcastic from a place of pain, then my words, my sarcasm is darker, and so I immediately will try and say, hey, you know what? Um, let's not have this conversation right now, or I apologize for that. That was defensiveness and not communication,
Right.
or whatever. Sometimes you have to let a couple hours pass before you're in a space where you can authentically do that. But I love that you brought up the most important part, and that is that the day the shit hits the fan, if I could just put it in the simplest of terms, that's the day that all the parties involved have a responsibility. Because if not, if one, or in a group of one or more, in a group of two or more, if one of those parties were not participating in the drama, were their emotions not involved, were they coming from a place of love, then the shit doesn't hit the fan. Then it just becomes, well, so and so just sent me a message and said take me out of the group, and they're gone, or so and so just left my business, and they're gone. But it's when we engage and we meet them at their level, rather than staying where we are, staying true to our own personal power, that things go awry. So I love that you said, you got to come and take responsibility for that, because it's always easy for the third person or the fourth person to look and say, in that particular situation, if it were handled differently, this could have happened, that could have happened. Or if there's recently a situation with some friends of mine, and one of their mutual associates, and I saw two people in this group of three who were both being hurt, who were both very upset, and neither of whom had the other person's information. So the first person didn't know what the third person knew about the situation and assumed that they knew everything, about it. The third person didn't know what that first person was talking about and thought they were just going nuts, until a fourth person came along and said, let me show you what's happened in the last couple of days. And now the third person and that first person, realized on their own that they were both being played against one another, that the objective was to break that relationship down, because that relationship was the one that was threatening everybody or everyone else involved. That was the relationship that scared the manipulative troublemaker that was the third person, the second person. And now both of those people have had space, and they're like, oh wow, so I see my part in this deal, and I see their part in this deal, and we certainly see the second person's part in this deal, because it was orchestrated to go down exactly like it did. And so so I hope that for folks who are finding themselves in those kind of difficult situations, that you realize what Amanda said, that sometimes you allow a little bit of space, and you say, hey, you know what? Maybe things didn't happen exactly like I perceived them, and they probably didn't happen exactly like the other person or persons perceived them either. So maybe there's a place to come together with one or more of those people and say, I think this is what happened, and I think that that if you value that relationship, then you have that conversation. If you didn't value that relationship, then you just move on. You know, and it's important when you move on to forgive yourself. But the situation would have been completely avoided in whatever the situation is for each one of you if you were straightforward in that moment. If emotion wasn't part of, see, when you're straightforward, there's no emotion involved. When you're straightforward, your hurt doesn't play a factor, your anger doesn't play a factor, your suspicions don't play a factor. You're simply saying, this is how this situation is affecting me. You're not bringing your anger, you're expressing your anger. This is how this situation has impacted my business, my life, our relationship, or whatever. You're not bringing that hurt, you're discussing that hurt. And I would really like to understand your side. And you have to really be in that space, to do that. And like I said, sometimes that doesn't happen in the moment. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is to walk away in the moment before anything is said. But when things are said, and we're human, and we'll all do it, there's probably nobody in the program who's not been in that situation. Then that's when it's time to just break down the walls and come back to the moment where humility is part of who you actually are, where compassion and love and understanding is your objective and your goal. So let's go to Ita and Jen. Either one, whoever wants to open up their mic first wins. and let's hear from you.
In my experience with being straightforward, just listening to everyone, I've realized that professionally I tend to be one way, and personally I tend to be a completely opposite way. And it's, if you could imagine a set of scales literally tipping one way to the other completely, that's me. When I worked in daycare, there was a specific way things operated. I let you know when you came in to be my assistant. There was no question about it. And if you did not operate within my parameters, I let you know without even batting an eye. It's like, listen, this is what you're supposed to be doing, Skippy. You're not doing it. Let's go. And I kind of gained a little bit of a reputation of Tigger the Tyrannical, because it's, I've got kids I got to make happy. I've got parents I got to make happy. I've got managers I got to make happy. I'm not here to make you happy. If you don't do your job, these three things don't get done. I need you to operate like this. Personally, though, complete opposite. It's like, it's okay. You can say whatever you want. You can treat me however. It's whatever. It's okay. I don't want to say nothing. I don't want to do nothing. It'll be okay. It complete opposite. And I just realized how very dysfunctional all of that is.
And why do you think, well, if you don't mind me asking, and you could always tell me, just shut up, none of your business, but why do you think there's a difference between the professional you and the personal you, that in what you feel you can and can't be 100% authentic with?
I think because professionally speaking, my livelihood was dependent on this. It was a reputation. I had a very good running room. I had a great reputation, a great rapport with the parents, and I didn't want anything to screw that up. But with my personal life, it's because I had to live with him, so it's, just let him say whatever, just let him do whatever, because he makes more money. He could do physical harm. If he kicks me out, I've got a kid, and I've got no place to go, no place to support her, no family, no nothing. So it just, because of that, it just kept going and cycling like that.
Sure. It sounds to me too. I think. Would you agree that in your professional life you were absolutely certain of your value and your worth, and in your professional life, in your personal life, your value and worth sounds like it was in many ways held hostage by your circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. Professionally, I had awards, I had degrees, I had letters from parents and the little notes from the kids and everything. And even when I moved on to massage, I had notes and messages from customers that they would leave me, and then I'd get home and basically being told, you're worthless.
Right.
It kind of sinks in after a while.
I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's a difficult situation to be in, and I know so many people have gone through that route. But for what it's worth, the person that I see, not I mean, I know less about you professionally than I do about you personally, and the person that I see is even better than what I'm hearing about your professional person. So, I mean, if I were to have to rate you personally and professionally, because I don't have enough background on you professionally, your scores as a person would be much higher than your professional scores, because I don't have all the information I need to judge, professionally. That both scores would be high, but I just want you to know that for what it's worth. I think you kick ass personally, and I'm sure that you kick ass professionally as well, because that's when you bring. Let's say, put it this way: I don't know enough about you professionally, but I do know that if you bring your person to the marketplace, then it's all over. That's how you kick ass in the marketplace, and that's really that simple. That's a bonus teaching for the day, guys. If you want to kick ass in the marketplace, bring who you are to the marketplace. So thank you, Jen.
Well, I'm gonna mute now so I can cry.
I had my share of doing that yesterday with my newest great nephew or grandnephew. I don't know what the right word for it is. My nephew's second child, and seventh by adoption, and seeing this little baby come into the world crying, and nothing breaks my heart worse than hearing a newborn baby cry, because I just can only imagine the terror that they feel being out of the womb for the first time. And he was just crying and crying and crying and just really letting it rip. And then his dad put his finger in the baby's hand, and the baby immediately stopped and became calm and became still, and this look of adoration and love. Now, I would have expected that from his mom, because they were connected by a tube, as well as emotions and as well as psyche and energy, for 9 months. But this baby knew that part of his DNA was there to protect him, and put his finger in. Anthony put his finger in the baby's hand, and I sat. I was just getting ready to do a consultation, and I came on, and they said, "What's wrong? You've got dark circles on your eyes." I was like, "I've just been crying for the last 15 minutes because I just saw something so powerful and so beautiful, such a miracle." So I understand the tears. Let's hear from the other side of the pond, Miss Ita. What's going on? Hang on, we got to unmute you. You have to unmute yourself, because I didn't mute you on my side. We can't hear you. Go scroll your mouse up to the top of the screen, and click on the microphone right above your head. Ita has to get an award for having the most patience with technology of anyone on the.
Hi, can you hear me?
There you are, yay!
I'm so sorry.
Some kind of award for technology.
I have 4 devices in front of me today to try and connect. This is how bad it is. Thank you for your patience in me connecting, and thank you for being able to listen to you all today, because I was late in. It took me a few minutes to focus into what the conversation was about. And to sort of talk about that. I mean, I'm actually the type of person that I'll just tell you straight up, and if it hurts your feelings, I'll apologize afterwards, type of thing. I mean, that's in work. I'll tell you if something is good, if something is bad, if it doesn't work, if it does work. Even with my products in sales, I'll just tell you straight. That's that's how I work in my work life and in my personal life. I mean, anyone who you talk to, I mean, I am blunt, I will just say it. On the other side, I can be so gentle in discussing matters, you know, with people, because people do like to talk to me for some reason, but I do tell it straight as it is. And it's probably come from a childhood where there was lots of secrets going on. So I ended up growing up to no secrets, no pretending. Why pretend? You can't form good friendships if one of the party is pretending. And, you know, that's sort of what I grew up with. Well, sorry, what I learned as I got older, that this pretending to be friends is I don't even know why people do it, because, and then pretending you didn't get hurt. If somebody hurt me, I tell them, you know, this is it, this is what you've done. I need you to tell me why you did that. And it actually helps the other person then to focus on why they do things that might hurt other people. But I've never, I suppose it's slightly cold, I wouldn't say cold-hearted, but it's slightly, as I said earlier, blunt. But that's, I mean, that's it. Take me or leave me. That's it. I don't know how you would analyze that type of person, but that's where I am at, basically.
Well, very good. And I encourage people to come from that place. It seems to me that even on this side of the pond, the folks that I know who are of first or second generation Irish descent uh, really seem to have that gift of being able to be a lot more blunt, a lot more open, a lot more frank about what their feelings are. Now, some of them, we could caricaturize, and Maureen O'Hara, who was a brilliant actress, who we lost last year. She played in a film with John Candy and not Kirstie Alley, another Kirstie something, the one from the Breakfast Club, um, and uh, and they she was an undertaker, and John Candy was a cop, and Maureen O'Hara was the mother, and she lived next door to Anthony Quinn from Zorba the Greek, who was playing a Greek man, and the mother would refer to, they lived in Chicago, and she'd refer to him as that dirty Greek, or she'd refer to the Italian as that dirty Italian, and it was reminiscent of here in the United States how in the big cities in Chicago and Philadelphia, ghettos were actually in New York, ghettos were formed, and the Italians didn't associate with the Germans or the Irish. Or, I mean, I grew up in a household where I listened to my uncle and aunt, constantly say, "Oh, we were the next neighborhood over from ours was the Irish neighborhood. Oh, what did they ever contribute to society except alcohol?" And so I was probably 10 or 12 years old before I realized that that was really hateful, because it wasn't ever said with animosity. It was like, you go to the Italian festival, you learn about your culture, because they don't, well, can I bring my friend? And one of my closest friends happened to be an Irish kid, and my uncle said, well, no, because that'll make him, don't invite him, because it'll make him feel bad, because all they did was invent alcohol. And so first, when I grew up, I realized what a great contribution that was by itself. But then I realized there were lots of other contributions along the way, and lots of persecution, and the big issue for Italians was that they stole St. Patrick and had to try and make it out like he was one of theirs instead of one of ours. And those kind of telling it like it is when it's hurtful is different from what Ita is talking about. where you're just, I'm just laying it on the line. I'm just going to let you know how I feel. Because if there are secrets, if I'm editing who I am around you, then our communication's not honest. It's not ethical. And so the way to go through your business is to go straightforward. I tell people all the time when I talk to them, there are people who think I should, play. We talked about this online a little bit. Play that fake it till you make it thing, and not let anybody know that, yes, I started my career when I was 18. I earned $300,000 the first year. I earned $500,000 the second year. I went on to earn over $5 million in this industry, and to earn most of that in the first 5 years. But then I've been a 6 and 7 figure income earner for 28 of the past 35 years. But when the Parkinson's hit and I shattered my arm, I retired. My partner that very same year the year before that, my partner at that time was diagnosed with cancer. We went through 2 very expensive rounds of cancer therapy in the hospital for a total of over 45 days, twice, and then he passed away. And so, long story short, I took several years off, shattered my arm, had to have 2 reconstructive surgeries, had to go through chemo myself, and so I make no apologies about the fact that my financial situation now is nowhere near what it was before. That I have a $3,000 a month nut for my household expenses. That's by choice. But that I have $2,400 a month that goes out in out-of-pocket medical expenses. So I'm just barely breaking even on a monthly basis. And so if you compare my income from my business, now, yeah, I'm really fortunate and blessed that I can do that with my business, that I can cover those expenses and I could live really well. But here's the thing. If at the end of the month I'm barely breaking even, then how does that make my life any different than the person who's working at McDonald's who at the end of the month has $7 left in their checking account as well? So I don't believe in not being open and honest and ethical, because as the saying goes, the struggle is real. And so I can connect with somebody who's going through hardship right now, who's living paycheck to paycheck. Because whether you're living paycheck to paycheck on a $200 paycheck or a $1,000 paycheck, or in my case, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, $5,000 in, $5,100 out, the struggle is the same. And that's why we have to be willing to be in the moment, to be authentic and straightforward. And when you do that, you're going to connect with more people's hearts, whether it's in your relationship, whether it's in your spiritual path, whether it's in your physical health, whether you're dealing with your doctors, your caregivers, your pastor, your lover, your mother and father. Be straightforward, but bring integrity and compassion to that conversation, and it'll never let you down. Guys, I really appreciate you taking time to be with us today. I think this was a great topic. We can continue this conversation on the blog, and the blog is up and ready actually today. I was lucky to get out of traffic and get home in time to get this thrown over there on the blog. And Amanda, thank you for solving that great mystery on why folks were not able to get into the room, because Facebook was truncating the URLs on the phone app. I never even thought about that, but that's happened with other URLs before. So yeah, the best way to fix that yourselves is to copy the URL open the URL in an instant messenger, and maybe what I'll just do is I'll post the URL for the live link in the blog every day at the top line of the blog, so everybody can go to the blog and click to get in. And then when the session is over, I'll remove that line from the blog, and you guys won't have to worry about it getting truncated. So.
And in the meantime, John Michael, I'm happy to send it in private messages to whomever, as long as I'm able to get on the call, which I haven't had a problem so far. I'm happy to do that.
Excellent. Thank you again so much. Thank you, Ita. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Sandy. And, of course, thank you, Amanda. And And for all of you that are listening, I know that a couple people let me know that they're scheduled. They can't get in on the 2 o'clock in the afternoon time period or the 1 o'clock afternoon time period, but they are in fact watching on the blog, and they've been reporting, how this is helping their business and their lives. So we appreciate you guys as well, and are here to help in any way we can. Be sure to comment on the blog. By the way, there's a possibility that everybody's comments on all of the blog posts might disappear because Facebook interpreted our blog comments as being somebody hijacking my account because it was coming from outside the realm and there was too much engagement and blah, blah, blah. So they suspended me from being able to comment to you, and they took all my comments to all of you off the blog. So we're going to find out today what's going on. It was 3 o'clock is when I'm able to get back into the blog and comment again. So we'll see if they do it and see if they put the comments back. If not, we'll have a new comment system by Monday. All right, guys, stay in the moment. Be grateful for what you've got. And always remember the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you soon. Namaste.
Bye.